SpaceX started trading today at $150 US under the ticker SPCX after the biggest initial public offering ever. The stock has been soaring. Some are already asking, though, whether it's running too far ahead of fundamentals, too early. Let's have a discussion with Jay Bala. He's CEO and Senior Portfolio Manager, AIP Asset Management, and Gregory Allen. He's founder and CEO of Decision Tree Research. Gentlemen, welcome to the discussion. Let's all take a breath. Trading day is over. First day of this stock trading, and there was a lot of excitement around it. So at the end of the day, at 159, up 19%, pared back a little bit from where it was earlier in the day. Jay, I'm going to start with you. What does the interest in the stock say to you?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I think it tells us that, look, we're off to a roaring start. I think we're back to a risk-on environment. I think this is going to be incredibly positive for the IPO environment on a go-forward basis. And so, look, I mean, I think however you look at SpaceX, it's definitely a huge success story, and it's been a huge success story from an IPO perspective. And so, look, I mean, I think you're going to see the next big sort of unicorns coming out. I think, OpenAI and Anthropic will probably be the next big ones, and then you're going to have Stripe and Databricks and a whole flurry of IPOs coming. But, definitely I would consider this incredibly good news for the markets, and, I think this is a good sign that the bull market keeps roaring on.
Okay, Gregory, do you invest in IPOs generally? If not, why not?
Oh, not generally. I tend to be a relatively conservative investor. And I think in IPOs like this one, there's a lot of reasons to be skeptical that this price is deserving on the fundamentals. I mean, right now, with that price bump that we've seen since the opening, SpaceX is now valued at more than $2 trillion. And, I have an MBA, and I think sometimes it's helpful just to bring these things back to Business 101. What would it take for an annuity to be valued at more than $2 trillion? It would have to kick out a guaranteed payment of nearly $100 billion every year forever. SpaceX is not kicking out $100 billion of profit every year, and it's not guaranteed to do so forever. In fact, it actually lost $5 billion last year. So I do want to say that SpaceX is an incredible business. It has already transformed one industry, space launch. It appears extremely likely to transform another industry, telecommunications. But this bet is fundamentally about AI. And so much of that is speculative. SpaceX's biggest AI revenue right now is leasing its infrastructure to a competitor, Anthropic, which has a far superior AI model. And so that leaves a lot of open questions about whether this dream is going to be realized to justify this valuation.
Okay, Jay, as you know, Starlink, which is the satellite part of the company, does make money. It's in profit. The rest of it, of course, is not. They funnel a lot of their money into research and development. Do you think the forward story, as Gregory said, is going to be about AI? Will that be the big money maker in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I think the way we look at it is you got to bifurcate these IPOs into two segments, right? Segment number one is for the next 6 to 12 months, it's more mechanical movements. It's all about what indexes are going to add you on and what kind of, forced buying or passive pressure are you going to cause on that, right? The second part, and, I completely agree with Gregory on the longer term. On the longer term aspect, of course, is about valuations, out 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, the next 10 years, of course, valuations will fundamentally matter. But I think for the next 6 to 12 months, I don't even think the valuations matter at all, right? Like right now, it's just a supply-demand imbalance. There's only a certain amount of float out there. And within the next 15 days, what you're going to see is the NASDAQ is going to add SpaceX to the index. The NASDAQ has $5 trillion in ETF money that tracks it. And so if SpaceX gets a 1% allocation to the NASDAQ 100, that triggers $50 billion in buying power.
Yeah. Gregory, what trends are you going to watch in the first few months of trading?
So I think there's one question here, which is how much is this stock actually impacted by developments of SpaceX itself? As you just heard, there are a lot of mechanistic movements of capital that are affecting this. But the company didn't float that much of its overall stock, so it's comparatively easy to be oversubscribed when you're not actually allowing that many shares to be sold. I think the question here is this actually going to be a stock that's going to respond to news? If, for example, there is a major delay with the latest generation of Starship, which could affect the rollout of additional Starlink satellites and the next generation of the constellation. if, for example, there are issues with building the next generation of the Colossus infrastructure, and if the Grok 5 model does not put Grok back into peer competition with companies like Anthropic. Those are big open questions. But I think the biggest open question looming over all of this is, if SpaceX is going to say that it's going to have an enduring advantage in building and deploying AI infrastructure, and specifically orbital infrastructure, they need to not just hit their prototyping milestones of putting GPUs on satellites in space, they need to provide a clear path to 10,000xing what they're currently doing. I mean, just to fulfill their Starlink obligations, they need their launches to go up massively of this next generation rocket. And the orbital infrastructure plans that really drive the terminal value of this stock are far more ambitious. We're talking about 100x the number of launches they do per year with a rocket that's not even finished being developed yet.
Okay, so let's turn that back to Jay. Two very good points. One is, how's the CEO going to do with public scrutiny of this company? Is he going to bristle? Is he going to sort of be a weight on the stock, or is he going to be a boost to the stock? Second, when can investors expect the fundamentals for the company to change in a way that will be positive on the bottom line for them?
Yeah, no, those are both good questions. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Elon is always going to be Elon. At the end of the day, look, I think the market's proven it. He definitely carries a premium. Whether you like him or hate him, the stock performs well because of him, right? At the end of the day, if you had somebody else leading the charge, I don't think you would have a $2 trillion valuation. I think that's just a fact, right? And in terms of valuation, like I said, I don't think anybody's even staring at the valuations for the next 12 months. Like, I don't even think it fundamentally matters. I think all that really matters is, like, this is a trading stock, right? At the end of the day, I mean, there's going to be a bit of volatility on it, but it's the mechanics, right? Fundamentally, how many indexes do they get added to? How much buying power is there? How much forced buying passive money is going to just push that stock up, because there's no choice in that, right?
Okay. So, Gregory, you used to work at Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' space company. You're saying this is going to be an AI story in the end. Jay's saying no one's really going to care about sort of valuations and earnings for a little while. So let's go sort of a year or two down the road. What do you want to see in earnings, let's say 2 years from now, Gregory?
Well, he's absolutely right that simply having Elon Musk as your CEO puts you in a different comparables category for your terminal valuation multiple. But fundamentally, this is tied to the AI boom. Starlink is a very profitable and rapidly growing business, but it is nowhere close to justifying a $2 trillion valuation for this company. That really is riding the AI boom. So if you don't see continued explosive growth in AI demand, that could have a near-term effect even beyond some of the mechanistic inputs that we talked about before. Let's talk about Anthropic, for example, which just became the largest AI infrastructure rental customer of SpaceX, signing an agreement for its Colossus supercomputer infrastructure at $1.25 billion per month, leasing that infrastructure. That deal goes through 2029. And why did Anthropic feel like they needed to make that deal, renting infrastructure from a competitor? It's because their revenue growth has been so explosive. Their run rate, which means if you take the December amount of revenue and multiply it by 12 to get a 12-month multiple, in December 2025, Anthropic was making less than $10 billion a year of run rate equivalent. And now they are close to $47 billion, according to the latest reporting from May. That is 5xing their revenue in only 5 months. That is the explosive growth of AI that makes these valuations even remotely credible. So if the AI boom does not continue at its current explosive growth and its explosive pace, then there is no credible story that would justify SpaceX's valuation. And I think that would be enough to move the needle even beyond the mechanistic things. But here's the thing. I expect the AI boom to continue booming.
Okay, more to come. We will see, as you mentioned, Anthropic and OpenAI AI expected later this year. Jay Bala, thanks for joining us. Gregory Allen, thank you as well. I appreciate you sticking around.
Thank you so much.
Up next, shares of Adobe taking a hit today. More on that in just a moment.